Hey, welcome back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. I have a really special guest today that I am looking to learn more about. She has over a decade of experience in real estate, not only in retail real estate, but she started with a builder. In the builder world is a little bit different, and we're looking at how she made that transition. Having come from a dozen years in insurance, she has nearly 25 years in working with people from sales and service perspective. In 2016 to 2020, she has a Laurel Award winner in excellence in production. She enjoys volunteering and being a child sponsor advocate. Let's welcome this great person and great real estate agent, Carrie Fife, to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to be here.
I'm glad you made it down. And when I was looking at your resume, as I troll everyone's LinkedIn is where I start.
Okay.
Well, I generally see people on the social media, what they're doing. Maybe they won an award or something, and they put it up there. But then I go over to LinkedIn because I like to look at what's your background?
Right.
Because I really think unless you're just out of college, many real estate agents like yourself transition from another career. Mm-hmm. How did that other career? How's it affected you? Or what skills did you take from there and applied to real estate? And I think, as I said pre-show, I think the unique thing about you is the transition from your previous career in real estate, corporate America there, to the builder world, mm-hmm. which is a little different sales there. But then now, obviously, you're out in the retail sales with the new Keller Williams St. John's.
Yeah. So started with insurance, property and casualty insurance in my 20s, and worked there in customer service and as a specialist, a service specialist. And just over 12 years at that company, they decided to switch products and kind of transition. And so I was really at a loss. I had no idea on what I was going to do. However,
interesting.
Thinking back at it now, I realized that I feel like God was just preparing a path for me. Like there was a plan already because of the people in my life. Some of my closest friends were already super successful in real estate. And in fact, we would go to dinner, and I'd be the insurance person there, and everyone else would be in real estate.
Right.
And so when it came time for me to just really make a decision on what am I going to do next, I feel like it was just right there.
Yeah.
It was all right. Now you're totally switching careers and going into real estate. And I started with a builder in 2013.
Well, we're going to step down. We're going to go in chronological order because I want to tell you, you grew up in Middleburg.
I did.
Yeah, I saw Middleburg High on your LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What was your at 18 years old? I mean, what was Carrie thinking about, for a career? I mean, what were you doing?
It's interesting. So I like to. So I'm a Jacksonville native,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm like from the woods to the beach, and it was very clear that I wanted to get out of Middleburg and make a life for myself, and I did that. I
Mm-hmm.
moved out to Ponte Vedra. Totally different lifestyle. And at the time, my father's fiance was the executive assistant at Zurich Insurance Services, where I started my employment there. So she's the one that got me on board, and the rest is history.
So you're really 18, 19 years old. You're with Zurich Insurance.
I think I started maybe 20.
Yeah.
Maybe 1920, somewhere around there, yeah.
I mean, I imagine you were there a dozen years, so you slowly graduated up and took some different positions. What are some of the different things that you did within the insurance?
So started as a receptionist and just handled the inbound calls. We had I believe vice presidents that would kind of like sit behind me and their assistants under them. Some very prominent names like the Petways here in Jacksonville. And so I transferred to different departments within the company.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point switched into the customer service side and managing the policies. So in doing that, that's creating certificates of insurance, processing endorsements, things of that sort. But it's also an inbound call center. So, agents and customers are contacting me, and I'm updating the forms and things like that as I'm on the phone with them.
So it's structured corporate America, though.
Yes.
So I mean, there must have been some professional trainings and so forth that you had to attend, or they wanted you to educate yourself as you further went on within the company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I became very successful with that company in the role that I was in because I thrive on structure. So I'm sure you can imagine where
Wow.
this conversation is going. I mean, I can see it light as day. Right?
Yeah.
But corporate America, and honestly, as all of my friends were in real estate in their 20s, I was not, because again, that structure, but also the health insurance, we're not self-employed. We weren't self-employed, being in corporate. But I also had retirement. I had a pretty good income that was consistent.
Right.
And I thrived in that environment.
So the things start to change in the company, as you were mentioning earlier in structure. So, I mean, what were some? I mean, when you're sitting there, like you said, you'd go out to dinner with the girls or whatever, and you'd be the only insurance. Everyone else is in real estate, which is actually, I still think it's rare today. I mean, I've had quite a few very young agents on that are doing very well, but I still think it's still a rare breed that sub 30 are in real estate, because I think it's more like your career where you've had another professional career and then went to real estate. I still think is still the majority. But these young people getting in. So the fact that you were surrounded by a bunch of so what you start, these changes are happening at work. When do you really start thinking about real estate? I mean, do you start poking and asking more questions with your friends to find out more about it? How do you start to get feel like this is where I want to go?
I feel like there were a few friends that said you should get into real estate. And my thought was absolutely not. I have the security of, a paycheck and all of these great
Health insurance. Yeah.
And so the answer was no. It was very clear that I was not going to make a move anytime soon until that transition happened. To be honest with you, it was a hard time in my life. I had no idea what I was going to do.
Were you out of work or just knew the transition was coming? What was actually?
Yeah. So in the end, there were several different layoffs, and in the end, I think I was in the last package of layoffs. And so
You knew it was coming.
we knew, oh yeah. We knew it was coming. So all of us were preparing. The mistake that I made was switching to the agency side. I went and worked for an agency, a brokerage downtown.
Right.
And I just didn't know what I was doing. And so they let me go, and I can't explain the impact of that after being so successful for just over 10 years or so. It's really a training issue,
Did you make the transition to the brokerage knowing because you knew things were on the downside, or you had made that because everything was great and hunky-dory and you thought that was just a better position at the time?
No, I was already let go from the company.
Okay, the corporate. Okay.
And so went and worked for a broker downtown. Very successful, but I just couldn't pick it up for some reason. I don't know. It's just a different ballgame.
Because working with the small, I guess small office, or are they like franchisees, like the insurance?
No,
when you say broker,
very large company.
so it was that company downtown was large,
right?
Okay, okay, but you weren't doing the same thing you were doing,
correct,
at the home office.
Yeah. So the company that I worked for, we serviced and managed, and I was basically like an underwriter as well.
Right.
So I underwrote these policies, and So I worked on the back end side. The agents that were calling in for us to manage those policies, that's who I went and worked for.
Right.
That was the side of the industry that I just could not pick up, and maybe I needed more time.
Right.
But overall, I will say that stuck with me for many years.
I think we all have that, and I want to dig in. I'm gonna take a pause here because I'm gonna transition, but transition smoothly from that. I've got something that I find that very interesting, and I think a lot of people can resonate with that at one time or another in their life. I want to mention Remy Graphics. If you guys can see, you guys watch the show. Remy Graphics does these nice mugs. Carrie's got a nice hot pink one of these in her bag there. She's going to take home today. But they do these laser engraved gifts. So with your closings, you need one or two of these. She'll do one-offs. You don't have to order a dozen at a time. I apologize. It just popped your camera off there. We'll fix that. Just so in a second. Doot. We should be back. There we go. And we're back. But she'll do one-offs on these. And she does other laser engraved gifts, and that's remygraphics.com. I'm going to put that up on the screen, remygraphics.com. They are local here in Northeast Florida, so they can get to you quick. I have this book here on my desk. Oh, I just got me on the screen. Let me get you back up on the screen. There we go. I got this book, Grit, here.
Nice.
Have you read this?
I have not.
You need to, I don't know if you Audible or what, but you need.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did get this from Better World Books because it's been out for might be almost 20 years. I think she wrote it in the 2000s. I'm working on doing a talk because I've heard so many agents, and I believe real estate agents have a lot of grit. If you don't have grit, you're not going to survive in this business. Yeah. And she calls grit the power of passion and perseverance. So my talk that I'm creating, and I'm evolving this talk, I call it the LLC, not limited liability company, but love, laughter, and consistency. Okay. Because I think all of us in our life, hopefully you find something you love to do, and we'll talk about why you love real estate. But I also think there's times like now you look back at that period of time we were just talking about where there might have been some sleepless nights. There might have even been some tears, as we've all had that situation where we've been knocked down or just, feel we've gotten knocked off the track or whatever type of thing. But today we're laughing about it. And when you have another obstacle come up, you think about that one and say, I can do this. And I do internal laugh, but so that's where the laugh comes in. And then obviously what you consistently do in your business. So to go off the LLC, cause I think we just talked about, your moment of grit, and I'm sure you've had others, but obviously has impacted you. As you still think about it today, right? I still, there's things that I think we all resonate with that. There's things that we did in our lives, but tell us why. You've been in real estate now for over 10 years, a good time with the builder, but now what is it that you love about it?
So there's a couple of things. One, of course, is the relationships that you build with people and working with customers in home building that are under construction. You sometimes are working with them for 2 or 3 years. So they come and visit you and they say, hey, we're just thinking about relocating down here from wherever. And we're just kind of scoping it out. And a year later, they'll come back and say it's getting closer. So all of a sudden you find yourself just building these relationships that are no longer just about shaking a hand and saying hello and let me show you this model, to why are you moving, let's talk about it, and what are you looking for, like what's your ideal home,
right?
And so the relationships, once you even get into contract, when you're building, it's a 12-month build, sometimes 14.
That's really, that goes into, we're talking about the transition.
Yeah.
We're a retail agent, maybe, because we've had times where you met the people on earlier in the week, and on over the weekend, you're making an offer within a week, and 30, 40 days later, the transaction's sort of over. But with the builder, yeah, I mean, of course, we were getting stretched out there. Some were taking 12, 18 months to build.
Right.
Some may have been 6 or 8 months because they were just ready to go with that model or whatever.
Yeah.
You know how the builders work. Um, that's you got to keep them like engaged
Hmm.
because the buyer made their contract, they did all the stuff that within a few days, okay, that's over. Now it's like sit back and wait for months before. So you got to stay engaged with them.
Yeah, and that's not any different
Hmm.
than on the resale side. I think nurturing your customers is something we have to do every day. Um, and to maintain that relationship, once you get them in contract on the home building side, that's when the process starts, and you're calling them every week. And but the relationship is built when they're bringing their dog and their kids and their whole family into
Hmm.
your office, and for no reason but just to bring you a cupcake or whatever. And so those are the memories that I take with me, and I have these relationships with people that I still go to lunch and breakfast with today. And so that's the relationships for me, the meaningful impact of actually sitting down. Um, Back when I was in home building, is, we did some custom stuff. So I would take a floor plan and they'd tell me their dream,
Hmm.
and I could draw and measure it out. And then we would see it 12 months later. And that to me is something special that I just really, I don't know, it just makes me emotional, but engages me with that customer for really a lifetime.
Yeah.
Remember that Toll Brothers home, or remember that Standback home, whatever it may be. We always talk about it,
Right.
whether they are there still living there or not. The other side of it is the home building piece. And so being raised in a family that were contractors and owning their own businesses. It's a family of drywall contractors as well as carpenters. In fact, I have a family member today that does the custom carpentry work in some of the model homes.
Right.
And so, with my family building homes, there's just a love there and all of my customers will tell you I see things in homes that we need to talk about, or I'm just admiring stuff when I'm walking in the door. It's just I'm in awe of that. So that's another piece of it that I really love.
So that we got the love, the laughter part. You said you think about it a lot. Do you? I mean, I know I kind of told you how I handle it.
Hmm.
These things we think about in life. And there was something I don't know. I was thinking about that. I said, man, that was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And I still think of it. Or actually, there was a memory I had, and I was like, man, I must have been like 4 or 5 years old. you
Yeah.
know, and I laugh about it. How do you? What brings up that thought of that time? That you felt that you were, if you want to say down and out or whatever, or not sure which way you should, go. What is there different things that happen in the course of a day, or your month or whatever? Something happens and all of a sudden it will trigger that thought of that time for you.
Yes. Resale, this side of real estate,
Mm.
which to me I call general real estate. Coming out of working for a home builder when I left, um, the reason that I made the decision to kind of move forward to general real estate is because number one, I had built financial stability over 8 or 9 years prior to that,
Right.
knowing that in order for me to make this switch, I needed to be financially stable. I
Hmm.
needed to know how to run a business, basically. And so I made the switch to general real estate, and was able to kind of come out of the gate pretty strong, knowing that I could make it for a little while, based on what I had built there, in my savings and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But the thoughts, you know, come when you have a down year.
Yeah.
And what's funny is a lot of agents talk about that, like, oh, it's a rough year. And I've never put a huge emphasis on it because I think I've been in it for a decent amount of time to know that it ebbs and flows, and you got to get ahead of that. And so when I have a year like this year, which has been difficult, and 2022 I think was another difficult year for me starting out. It raises a lot of negative thoughts of,
Right.
I don't know if I can do this. And so yeah, I do go back to that year, that job where it was like, you're not good enough, and that's what it makes you feel
Yeah.
like, right?
Yeah. 100%.
But the reality of it is I know my value. I know my worth. I also know that you give me a little bit of time and I'm going to become an expert at it,
Right.
and I'll be really good. So it just takes time,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Um, so the third part of the LLC is consistency.
Yeah.
There was probably stuff that, how many years did you spend with the builders? Was it like
About 8.
about 8 years?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you probably had a routine down. That routine's changed now. I call it retail. You call it general. Whatever. Same. You're out there, self-employed now, 1099.
Yeah.
Don't have corporate America behind you with the benefits and so forth. So you've had to change some things and start doing some things consistently, which I think with the retail or general real estate agent, there are things that are consistent at evolve over time, because that's evolved with the market. What's going on. Where do I need to focus my time right now to get the greatest benefit. I think obviously in the last, well, really, I will just say since COVID, for 4 years now, we've seen it evolve from sticking a sign in the yard, having multiple offers, to now obviously we're seeing homes sit for a period of time, some much longer than others. Some are selling the next day, if they're the right property, but others are sitting. And so what are we doing now? So what are some things that I was gonna go one way with this question. I'm gonna go this way with this question, because I imagine there's still some things that you do that you did as a builder that you're also doing now as a general real estate agent. What are some of those consistencies to create the structure? Because you said you love structure, to keep that structure in your life.
So you brought up a word that's a real big pain point for me, because yes, there is no structure.
Yeah.
And so what comes with that is great leadership. And I had some conversations last year that were just like in the home building sales, that were very similar, which is I can sell homes, but I cannot run a business. And so I had to make some drastic changes for myself. And what that was going back and building a foundation. I needed the business models to be able to support what my goals were and what I was looking to do over the next 2 to 5 years, or however long. And I didn't have that, so I was just operating by my phone ringing.
Right.
And
as I think many agents do.
Yes.
I think majority of agents do. That's why there's only a very small percentage that make most of the money, right?
Yeah, so there was no consistency whatsoever. And by the grace of God, my phone did ring a lot last year. I did pretty well for myself, and I thought that I was going to be okay. But I realized in this industry, you still need to have be consistently prospecting, and the lead gen piece is so important, period. I mean, you have to be prospecting and setting a focus time each day to make these phone calls, reach out to your customers and try to nurture them, or follow up with some of the past clients or open house clients that came through, whatever it may be. You need to be prospecting. And so I didn't really know what that model looked like for me, and I did not do that last year. My phone was ringing nearly 100% of my business was sphere of influence.
Right.
So I needed to shift. And by doing that, I created the business models for myself, and that I follow very strictly now. But I also started doing the lead generation. And what I'm hoping to see is about 25% of my business become new leads that are coming in.
Right.
And that could be anything from door knocking to open houses, whatever it may be.
Right.
There should be a consistent
Well,
process
100%,
there.
100% fear of influence is not bad if it's
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100% of what, right? That's good. Yeah. But yeah, so because you're entering the retail general real estate world, yeah, you've got to, keep feeding that, grow that sphere
Right.
till it does get big enough that you are busting at the seams and can't handle anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's the position you want to be at. Even for those that are listening, because I thought, thinking about the show today and your background coming from the builder world, should someone who's thinking about getting into real estate think about entering through the builder perspective? Because I imagine when it came down to contracts and so forth, as a new agent today, just finished a class, just got their license, just signed up with whatever brokerage, they haven't even written their first contract, and that's kind of their fear. That's not your fear. You've done it so many times.
Right.
You know what to do. And then when any changes, is like we had this summer with the changes, weren't really a big deal because you've just done it hundreds of times
Right.
already.
Yeah.
But your challenge was leaving the builder marketing to Carrie's marketing.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are some benefits with working for a builder, which is the leads come to you. I mean, you're in a community for years sometimes until they close out or you move to a new community. And with that, marketing does a great job with driving traffic to your community. And so the buyers will come to you. And eventually, I say, even in general real estate, it's the same. It's about a 2-year turnover before you're going to see some, good money coming in to where you can finally start
Breathing.
making a profit.
Yeah.
Breathing, all the things. Right? Because there is something with builders that's a little bit different. It's still 100% commission. They don't pay today like they used to pay. I've heard some of the structures have changed. And so even in 2013, when I first got into the builder world, I sat down with $76,000 of debt with my financial advisor and said, what are we going to do? And so you still strategically have to have an approach with the builders that says, okay, I'm either going to go straight out 100% commission. I think they give you a small salary, maybe 10 grand or so. Or there are some other options.
That's the way they could tell you to be at the model for certain hours. They have to
Yeah.
give you something when they tell you have
Right,
to be there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so was that a good option for me at the time? Well, if it takes you a year to build, if I'm selling one home, I'm really not getting paid for another 12 months or so. So that option was not
Right.
good for me. The other option for new agents considering home building would be a little bit higher salary with a less commission, which will kind of get you through your first year or so. And then some home builders will provide a draw, so you can pay them back over time. And that's what I chose to do. And eventually worked my way out of debt very quickly and into a positive,
Right.
place to where I was actually breathing.
I didn't actually think of that part, but obviously that's common sense. You get thrown into whatever neighborhood, whether it's brand new or up and running already.
Yeah.
You may accumulate sales, but it's months before you're ever going to see that check. But obviously, like I said, they give you the draw against that further commission, which I'm sure they took their drawback after
They'll take it
the
out every paycheck.
yeah,
If you
yeah,
every closing.
right. To get their money back. The mortgage world works a lot in that same
Okay, yeah.
aspect. Especially like here working at the bank works the same way
Yeah.
from that standpoint. But we're not generally looking at months for a closing. We're generally
Yeah.
maybe 30, 60 days at the most, right? So you have to be prepared from that standpoint. From the standpoint of the builder, what did you see during the 8 years that you were there? We talked a little bit about pre-show. From the standpoint of really training you as a salesperson, I would imagine they have a lot of interest in how you present their product,
Hmm.
right? But I'm sure one builder is better than the other too. Because there are a lot of guys who were small time builders have gotten very big here, but they still run their business like they're small time for
Yeah.
some reason, and not bring in the marketing, not bringing in the training and so forth to keep. Because I imagine just like a real estate agent at a broker wants to keep that real estate agent because that's the only way. Over time, they're really going to make money because hopefully that agent gets better and better each year. But the only way
Right.
to do that is train, add value. Is the builder doing the same type of thing?
They are, and they're doing it on two ends. So you have the construction side of it. So you've got your construction training. I need to learn more about this product, and eventually, and I believe in this is when I understand the home and how it's built or constructed, then it's much easier for me to sell it. If I believe in the product, I can sell it all
Yeah,
day long.
yeah.
And then there's the other side, which is how do I sell? How do I talk to people? How do I engage with customers? So that's a sales manager or sales coach side that's coming in and training on that approach and what you're looking for. And so through with both of the home builders that I worked for, both of them were excellent builders in the industry currently. And well, not, I don't know why I said currently because one of them's no longer existent. But
They
I
built good
believed in their
homes.
product.
They built a good
Excellent
product that you
homes.
could get behind. Yeah.
Absolutely, I believed in their product, and I could sell it.
Hmm.
So yes, there was training there. There will be training there for any new agent that's looking to enter the industry.
When you just to compare what you've done so far, here in the retail general real estate and looking at that, I think if the brokers, if you I assume you went and talked to different brokerages, hopefully you did. If you did, but they all say, "Hey, we've got great education, we got great technology." Right? I mean, every single I don't care who the broker is, they got a new agent in front of you. Oh, you need to come work for us because we got great education and we got great technology. But what have you seen in the difference between what the retail agents are doing? You're surrounded by a really core group of solid people over there. George, Kelly, Kim, Katie, over there at the with the Welch team and their growth out into this Keller Williams St. John's and Cole. We'll mention Cole. We won't leave him
Yeah.
out. Cole.
Well, Cole was back. He was one of my friends as well as Christina back in the
They brought you a lot of business
in my
Yeah.
20s that they
Oh.
didn't know they were the ones that like Cole I was going to dinner with all of our other real estate
Oh.
agents. And so yes, he was
Okay.
one of my friends that was successful in real estate back then when I was in insurance.
So the difference, my question is the difference in what you saw in your experience in the builder world to now you're out all day long spending time with these general real estate agents, the thirst or desire or need for consistent education, going to lunch and learns or going to NEFAR or whether it's something right there at the office, is it I would think it's more like a fire hose than it was at the builder, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm not having inside the builder world and experience it. Do you notice a difference as far as the thirst for more knowledge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in builder world, you know, we started, our role was sales managers. We were our own manager
Mm-hmm.
essentially. And I am today. I mean, I run my own business, right?
Right.
So, um, it's really completely different on the general side under a brokerage that's offering training. I mean, every day there's
Right.
something. So,
I always felt like the builders, having worked for Dreamfinder's lender and obviously
yeah.
interacting with the site agents there, they're out on these little islands. These subdivisions all over. I mean, they
Yeah.
could be way out in Middleburg, who knows, right? Or
Well, they
all the way
are.
out to be wherever it is. You're out on these little islands,
Yeah.
and you may chat, or I don't know. I imagine I would hope the sales manager does a regular Zoom call, but to bring everybody in, because some people are at such distances, and then the hours you work are crazy as well. So you don't want to take up too much of their time away from home or family and so forth to make them drive a distance to come in, say, to the office and have a weekly sales meeting type of thing. That they're out on these little islands, but did you experience from the standpoint of the management reaching out and like I said, because I think I'm really getting to the point of the brokerage and adding value. Cole, Christina, the leadership, Shira over there, every of the 100 agents you say they're close to it that they've got now, their nightly nightmares am I adding value to those agents' lives, right? As from the builder standpoint, do they kind of have that same type of attitude, or sometimes did you feel like you're out on an island?
No, you're not out on an island. Yes, there was constant support, and whether it's marketing, project manager, contractor that you're working with every day, and sometimes multiple different construction managers that are handling, some of your customers' homes.
Right.
And we would have a weekly sales meeting, but they're constantly adding value by coming in and just saying, okay, here's a new product that we have, or a new vendor, or let's do something this way. And either way, you have access to it. It's going to be up to you on whether you're taking advantage, of wanting to learn.
To be a great site agent, you do that. What did I say? 2016 to 2020.
2000.
NEFPA recognized you. No, for your awards as a top production. Your 2016 to 2020, and wherever I found that, your Laurel Awards as a top producer as from the builder world. There is prospecting involved. What do you if you were coaching somewhere, or someone said, "Hey, I'm looking to go into builder." What makes a great site agent? What are a couple things that you would say?
I think they say within the first 30 seconds or so, the buyer, the consumer will know, if that relationship is going to be something that is good for them. And so as soon as they open the front door, how are you greeting them? What are you saying?
So heavy on the personal.
Oh, yeah.
It's not necessarily the shiny model. They're already judging you before they even look at the model. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just being welcoming, and like you said, with the LLC, laughing and just trying to have a good time. It is a very large purchase for them. And so you want to make a great first impression. And
is the site agent a great site agent really creating the relationships, though, also with the general agents to bring them people?
Oh, yeah.
How important? Because I think it was lost there for a period of time because we were just in a frenzy, and the builders didn't even want to see agents. Like they didn't even want to pay you guys. Now they want to pay you twice as much.
Mm-hmm.
So and now they're sponsoring your events. Now they're
Yeah.
having you over for lunch and learns in the model. As for before they didn't even want to have anything to do with that, right?
Yeah.
In 19, 20, 21. So as an agent sitting there, because there's a lot of hours you send there where nobody even walks in the door.
Right.
What are some of the things that a great site agent is doing
Mm-hmm.
during those downtimes?
Mm-hmm. So it's the same with prospecting. Get on the phones. You're going to call some of your A, B leads.
Mm-hmm.
Just continue to nurture them through emails, follow up with them by the phone, text, whatever it may be, to consistently be engaged with them. On the other hand, there's a hefty paperwork side of construction. Um, Probably less than years ago, because now there's not a ton of semi-custom builders that are allowing changes
Right.
after a certain time. But believe it or not, we actually had not only just a lot of follow-up to do, but a lot of paperwork items to complete. So
So communicating, because you were doing more custom things, you're following up internally
right.
with your staff to make sure these houses aren't built in the improper direction on a lot and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a whole nother story, but
It's a completely different
it happens.
story. Yeah.
It happens though,
Yeah.
doesn't it? That made me lose track of what I actually wanted to ask you next. Because just thought of this one my wife had, and it was like one of the last lots, and they deliberately built it because the retention pond was on one side, so they would basically be facing the retention pond. Well, they ended up building it the opposite way, and basically they'd be facing their neighbor who was only 10 feet away, the side of the house. Yeah. But it happens.
Right.
And we wish the quality control was a little higher there. Um, uh, the relationship, knowing what you know as that site agent for 8 years, now you're out in retail. There obviously there's some great site agents that have huge relationships with agents who regularly are bringing them business.
Right.
Now that you're on the other side, have you created some of those relationships back with some of these builders, or are you still maybe using it? I think new home construction is kind of like a crutch, or I guess, of course, some people are extremely finicky. And I'd like to think, just some of the feedback from agents are not necessarily our foreign-born buyers really love new construction.
Yeah.
Right. How important is, now that you're on this side, to have relationships, though, to be able to pick up the phone and say, you know what, I got this buyer and I got this situation. Is there anything in your inventory? Do you have any spec homes and so forth? There was a time, and I was at working for Jet and where I had agents who were pre-qualifying. They're wandering around looking, for existing homes and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe had a price point that they needed to be in, but the builder, they were just being extremely lazy. Like they didn't, I would call around to the subdivisions or email them out, because obviously had more of an internal email. So like, hey, what spec homes do you have now? Because I got a buyer who wants to be moved into a home in the next 30, 60 days, and almost have to pull it out of them sometimes. But to the agents that are out there, like yourself now as a retail general agent, you want to call it, the importance of having those contacts within the builders, so you can say, hey, I got this buyer, this is what we want, do you have anything coming up?
Mm-hmm.
How important is it to have that communication?
It's extremely important, because it's not about you or the site agent.
Mm-hmm.
It's about your buyer. And so how quickly can you make a connection with someone to get them the information that they want today?
Right.
And so I have them on speed dial. I mean, it's everyone from, gosh, I even talked to my division president yesterday from the home builder that I worked with previously. But yeah, I remain in close contact
Yeah.
with home builders that I have done business with, a lot of business with, or worked for in the past.
Yeah. Well, we're fortunate now the inventory is pretty much double than what it was, I don't know, a year and a half ago, that's
Right.
out there.
Yeah.
So it's a little more flexible. At a time when the inventory was down to, 5 or 6 thousand homes in Northeast Florida, and you're like, okay, I got a buyer here. They can be approved for this level of payment.
Hmm.
Well, now, if you want to buy in St. Johns County, it's like, okay, how much is the HOA? How much is the CDD?
Yeah.
Right? You got to figure out, can I get all that into that payment, right? And have that relationship to know that there's these neighborhoods. And then, of course, since I was on the lending side there, I could look and I knew what all the fees were, right? And to be able to pinpoint. And it was what was interesting. I don't know if any of my people who I worked with were listening. They were like, why would you? Because we got paid twice as much to do a non-Dream Finders home, right? When you do the builder stuff, that was basically being fed to you.
Yeah.
So you got paid half as much. So they were like, oh, why would you take this agent who has someone pre-approved looking at existing homes? Why would you point them to a Dream Finders home? It's like, well, one, we're kind of like the family. Two, my job is to help that agent. If I can help that agent find that person a home quicker than an agent can move on to another, because at some point the relationship ends. If you're not helping them and you don't find the home for them, they divorce you. It's like, I got to move on to someone else who can find what I need. So if I can help that agent, I felt that was a win, even though hopefully they'll just give me the next one. Right.
Yeah.
But I felt it was important to reach out and make that connection between the two. Even though I was getting paid half as much, at least they got a sale, and we're able to move on and had a happy buyer and move on.
Right.
I don't know why people. You do the right thing, and I guess I thought I was doing. I know I was doing the right thing. Let's put it that way. So the builder, you came in that model every day at a certain time. You had a certain routine. You had your paperwork. You had all these things. You had to make some phone calls, whatever it was, through the course of the day. Or obviously on Saturday, you got the balloons are flying. You're expecting people to roll in there. So the days changed a little bit. How is that different for you? What are you doing differently today?
And Saturdays are no different. No different.
Right.
Monday through Friday is usually prospecting. Learning, going to brokers' opens, things of that sort.
Are you setting that structure though for yourself? Because you say you thrived in it. So with the experts that you've got over there, and you got a great group around you, what are some of the things that obviously your ideology, mentality, hey, I want this structure, and then what is George and Kelly and Katie and all the others greats that are in that office here? What are some things that you've kind of picked up with them, like? I mean, are you the type of person that comes in? I'm there at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock every morning, just like you're checking in, you're clocking in. Yeah.
Again, I laugh about this because Christina and I have had so many conversations in regards to consistency, and I'm going to plug her because she's one of my favorite persons and leaders. In fact, you have the Instagram up. She's my person there, right? But I believe she runs one of the most successful teams in Northeast Florida because they are consistently doing the same thing Monday through Friday. And they have a schedule. And so for me, what that day looks like is 2 to 3 hours, 9 to 11 or 9 to noon on the phone, just like her team does. Now, it's taken a long time to get there. And there are many days where you just are like, I really don't want to do this today. But I come back around to it and I sit down because I know that it's the one thing that's going to deliver results, in the next 90 days or so.
Right.
And so I try to stick to it as much as possible. I believe that it's pivotal. No matter what year you are in real estate, I think it's hands down, the number one thing you should be doing Monday through Friday is 2 to 3 hours
You
of
try.
lead generation.
It's eating the frog. You ever seen that book, Eat the Frog, or Eating My
Mm.
Frog, or something? It's like the whole thing of whatever you have to do that day that you really don't like to
Yeah,
do, you just gotta just take care of it first thing
right.
and be done with it.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the feeling you have with the process?
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I just don't do well with not having a routine or any type of structure. So, I created a routine for myself. I wake up at 5 and I'm at the gym at 6 a.m. And I come home, do my readings, and then I get ready for the day and I'm in the office. I'm probably in the office, other than some of these teams, as a single agent, I'm probably in the office more than most agents would be, just because I prefer to get up, get ready, and go to the office. Some
Put your game
agents,
clothes on.
yeah, they're
Yeah.
better just working at home, and that works for them. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Either way, hands down, period, you need to have your focus time of being on the phone.
Yeah. What is your, do you have a goal, you know, every day? I know some people like they have to, they want to have X amount of conversations is the term. Is that, do you have a goal like that? Hey, I want to have 5 or 10 conversations with people a day, or when you're sitting down for those 2 or 3 hours prospecting, what is your,
If you don't have an end goal, then in your business models, you're just shooting at the wind. So yes, I have a goal every day of not only, and you have to drill it down, not only how many people am I reaching out to, but how many connections am I truly making? How many people am I converting to an appointment?
mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the year, I want to be able to reflect on that and see how many of these people that I spoke with and connected with had an actual real estate conversation with
Right.
that converted to an appointment and then to a contract, or how many did I lose? So yeah, there's very strict goals, and it's drilled down. Can't just be a number.
Did you take, I mean, going back to the builder, uh, the site agent, we talk about what you learned in 8 years to be, what are the top site agents doing, type of thing. I would imagine there was a little bit of that in there. Like, hey, I'm going to call so many agents today and tell them, about this new model or what's going on, or maybe, we drop price on something, or we're going to change, right? That was always a big thing. Hey, you better make contract today because we're changing prices on Monday, type of thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that many calls. I mean, I imagine you did the same thing as a
Oh
builder,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I obviously calling a real estate agent, you are trying to help them versus just cold calling. Well, you're not really. I mean, you're trying to work off your sphere or people. Hopefully, you've interacted
Right.
or whatever it is, and you're just retouching them. Are you doing any other type of? Are you sending a newsletter, anything like that? What is some of the things that, like I said, the builder probably did that for you before in a formal, if they did it. I don't know if the builder sent out. Maybe they sent it out to real estate agents. I don't know. But when as an agent now, your own business, or have you started to structure? What are they teaching you over there at Keller Williams? What is Christina like, from the single agents, or Cole, or whoever's leading you guys up over there, from the standpoint of having some standardized marketing that is going out on auto, basically?
So, and I wouldn't even say that it's Christina or Cole or Keller Williams. Every brokerage should be doing the same thing. Every agent should be doing the same thing. There's two aspects of lead generation. One's going to be your prospecting, the other is going to be the marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a part of your business model, your lead gen business model, is the marketing package, which is going to be your newsletters. You can do direct mail if you want to, advertising.
Right.
You know,
What do you
how it
like to
is.
do, though? That's what I want. What does Carrie like to do?
I like to have a newsletter, a monthly newsletter that goes
Mhm.
out that I can personalize to something,
Yeah.
that I've done, vacation, whatever it may be. So I like to have the newsletter go out. I love the idea of sold postcards. After you sell one of your listings, sending that out to a complete neighborhood and maybe dropping a few tips, two or three pieces of value. One is maybe offering to give them a CMA or something
Right.
with a QR code, or I sold this home in 24 hours over list price, or whatever it may be. So I love doing a sold postcard.
You've gotten some response off of that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
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 Because you never know when that other person is, or the neighbor next door, 3 houses down, is thinking about selling too, and then
Right.
to see their neighbor get, especially if it was a successful one, sold in 24 hours, got more than list price. Yeah,
Yeah.
that gets them all excited, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't think I actually asked this question directly though. We talked about it. Um, Someone who might be listening right now, thinking about getting into real estate, maybe they are in their first year of real estate and they're really not. I think oftentimes I'd like to blame, if someone fails in their first year of real estate, there's partly the blame on a brokerage, but let's just say that person's in that situation where they don't feel they're succeeding. To would you recommend them to go chat with some of the builders to see if there's opportunity there, just to get more of that confidence, like we talked about? Because I think having you're like I said, you're opposite of a lot of the agents that I've had on. When most of them, any of the new agents, were all like, oh yeah, my first year, oh my god, learning the contract and so forth, and how to do this, paperwork, and really actually you knew more about the product than any general agent does. They have an existing home, they know some basics of it, like when the hot water was replaced or the roof was replaced, but they don't know like what nails they're using, right? You knew all that. Yeah, screws. Yeah, you knew all that. And obviously it's always great in a new place. All the appliances are brand new, right? That one's easy. But what you knew about the new homes that you were selling, the builder homes, you knew a lot more than the general agent knows about any existing home they're trying to sell. But when it comes to the contracts and so forth, a lot of the younger agents that I've had on, or newer agents, I should say, that are in their first couple of years, they said, the first struggle was getting confidence. I don't know who says it, but I've heard it. I think it was Patty Ketchum. I don't know. I just use it, that the agents should know how to read the contract upside down, so they can turn it towards there and know what it says without actually, or when someone asks, hey, they go, oh yeah, that's in this section right here, and not even really look at it, right? They should know that. You had years of that before being basically out on your own, where you are today. So you're kind of opposite. So my question directly is, that new agent, maybe they call you and have a sit down with you and have a cup of coffee.
I encourage them to give me a call.
Yeah. Should I go over to the builder side? What are the benefits? What are the things I need to know before going over there? And is it for everybody? I mean, how would that conversation go if I called you up and said, you know what, I want to get in. I'm in real estate. I've been in it about 6 months. I'm not really doing well. I really want to get in the business. I just feel I'm not getting the at bats, because that's important, right? Talking to a number of people. You have had a lot more of those in the builder world than you do as a general agent, especially starting off. You have a lot of practice, right? If that person called you, sat down, what are some of the things that you would tell them about the builder versus the general, and things they need to, like if they sat down with a sales manager at one of the builders, what would you ask?
So if someone were to actually come to me and say, should I go and work, which I believe I've had that happen, it's far greater than just answering the question yes or no. It is, before anyone gets into the retail side of real estate, they need to be financially stable. Hands down,
either way, whether you're going builder or or
Yeah,
general,
yeah.
you need to have your stuff in. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is sales.
Mm-hmm.
It's whether it's medical sales or, selling something, TVs, who knows, whatever it may be. Sales is normally 100% commission. So you need to know how to budget your budget well. Also have a savings
Mm-hmm.
there. And one mistake that I made when I first got into general was not having those business models in place. Again, just saying, okay, well, I've got the savings, but I didn't know what to do with the savings. So here I am, and I'm not even joking you, $70,000, $80,000 a year
Mm-hmm.
in expenses, business expenses that were not really bringing me any business. And so, as you know, and you
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, I mean, we've been in not just a seasonal shift here, we've been in an economic season
Mm-hmm.
for the last 2 or 3 years. And so, it's cutting cost and basically taking a step back
Right.
before you move forward. Right now, that's what I'm doing. I've had to make a huge shift. So, based on my experience in this industry for so long, it's a far, far more in depth conversation than just, I think I want to sell homes, but who should I work for and what should I do? How should I
Right.
approach it?
Right. You're hitting on something here that I think is vitally important, because there are, obviously, I've had a couple hundred of them in front of me, very smart people. Some know how they got to where they're at.
Yeah.
Some don't.
Some choose to forget.
Some choose to
I've been
forget.
there too.
Yeah, but I mean, there's sometimes people walk up and they just naturally can hit the ball, right?
Yeah.
And they don't know why, and then they see someone else and they're like, I don't know why you can't hit the ball. I can hit the ball. Why can't you hit the ball, right? We but there are so many great people, and it really goes back. If you're a new agent listening right now, you need to tune in. There is so much. The best agents collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
The best agents want to help. Now, here's the thing. You know what they know? They know, if they've been helping people for a long enough period of time, that only a certain percentage are actually going to execute on what they actually tell them to do.
Right.
So don't think they have no problem telling you how they got there. The question is, are you going to do something similar to what they did, or follow it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they know, so they're not really worried about you becoming a competitor.
Right.
That's not the thing. But the how did the you called it, I don't know if you called it the business model, what was the phrase you used, but the structure, how do you had all your savings, but now I'm entering into the general real estate world.
Mm-hmm.
How I'm going to execute, what should I be spending on marketing and so forth. And there's great people like Christina, and the other Cole and all the, sure, we can name them all, but we'll just call them Keller Williams St. John's group over there, as other brokerages do. You just got to find them. And the easiest way to find them is actually to go out and start talking to people, because
Right.
you will find out who is beloved out there. There's some brokers that people like, and they're a good broker. There's others that people are like, oh my God, I can't work for anybody else,
Right.
because they are feeding them those steps that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, you got this. This is what you should be budgeting. This is what you need to be doing today. And if you're executing on what those things, should be moving forward. Maybe not as fast as you want to, but we all want to move very fast, right?
It's pivotal,
Mhm.
because for me, I think I knew what I was looking for. I didn't know what the brokers were offering until I were under them.
Mhm.
And I've worked for 2 or 3 excellent brokers, but I've been with a total of 4. It took me 4 to get here today, to realize that I needed a business model and a
Mhm.
plan. And but that's not saying anything negative about the prior, but everyone's a little bit different.
Yeah.
So you do need to interview and talk to several different agents with different brokerages and see what they're offering. As for a new agent, if you're a brand new agent coming into the industry, get with a brokerage that's going to train you ground up.
Because there are some that are better with very new green people than others.
Yeah. Yeah. So Keller Williams does a killer job with building your business. And I personally think it's above and beyond for helping a new agent to get on their feet, build their business models, and move forward.
If there was somebody brand new coming in today, Keller Williams would probably be the first brokerage that I would say you need to go talk to someone at one of the Keller Williamses. Yeah.
But I've not worked for Berkshire or Caldwell. I hear they do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just interview and you'll find the right brokerage. You just need to really sit down and have some meetings with people that are within the brokerages. What's positive, find out what your niche is. There are some brokerages today that are really geared towards introverts. They do everything online and through a virtual world. And let me tell you, that is not me. So, mistake number one.
Yeah.
So highly recommend what you said, just talking to several different people.
And I think and this is for not only new agents. I think there's a lot of agents out there who maybe even don't even realize why they're struggling. Or maybe they're okay with what they're doing, and we look at their numbers and say, "Oh, they must be struggling," but maybe they're okay with it. I don't know, but
yeah, everyone's good. It could be circumstantial. You never know.
Some want to go through the roof and they want to build great big teams like Christina and that kind of thing. There's others that are okay. Hey, if I got a deal a month, I'm okay. I'm married and I got another income coming in. We're fine with that, or whatever their situation is. So they may not be struggling. But I think if you feel you're struggling, whether you're in year 1, 6, or whatever, and you're not growing, you need to, would you agree to sit down and have coffee with these other agents, find out what's going on around you? Because there are, I think, like in the cycle of life, there is at different times you meet people moving at different speeds. And where this broker may have been good 3 years ago and you're still hanging out, but things have changed in their life, successful, not successful, whatever. Maybe they're not at the speed they were 3 years ago. So you got to jump on this train over here, and where that broker is adding value or holding you accountable, whatever it may be. I think some people actually just stretch out when they reach a certain point and hire a coach, because hopefully that's going to give them that extra little boost, or show them a different light, which your experience in the builder world, kind of like I want to relate it to my lendings. I've been doing this 19 years. I've worked for different lenders. Well, every time I've worked for a different lender, I learned something completely new, like a new loan product. Because if that lender isn't doing that product, you don't ever hear about it.
Right,
and if it's the first one you've ever worked for. So when you made that transition from, okay, I'm a builder, you worked for 2 different builders, if I heard you correctly, right? Yeah. And all of a sudden now you're out in the general real estate world. Did your eyes light up a little bit? Did you kind of, oh my, well, hold on a second, I didn't even realize how big this world is.
Yeah. It's so funny. I think I first was like, wow, I'm like, I've got the world at my fingertips, because Jacksonville is such a huge city that I could now spread out and work with buyers and sellers all over.
Right.
If I wanted to. So that was really exciting.
To realize that everyone's a potential customer.
Right.
Kind of when you're working for the builder, you're like, well, I'm only looking for people who want to live in this part of town.
Right.
Need this size house.
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So but that can be, you can get lost in that too.
Yeah.
I think you can get lost in the realization that, everyone is your customer. And then you're like, okay, all right, well, where do I start? Because now the world's so big. You're like, oh my God, where do I actually, start in this? And I imagine you've probably read or coached or whatever, you still want to find your avatar, right? Who am I actually trying to be?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to have a niche for
Yeah.
sure. You want to know who is your client, who's
Hmm.
your ideal client,
Right.
and where do you prefer to work? I'm not gonna usually go back out to Middleburg.
Hmm.
It's an hour away or so. It just depends. But I mean, honestly, I work all over.
Right. Right.
We're gonna
Um,
take the business no matter where it's at.
what in you guys are having your sales meetings over there. You're
Hmm.
getting input, um, from the top leaders over there. What are they teach? I don't know if the teachings are right there. What are they suggesting right now,
Hmm.
that all of the agents should be doing right now? What are they feeding into you?
Did you see the article that just came out that said 2024 is the worst year in real estate since 1995?
I have heard that said. I forget who was on, because I do so much social media. I see that reel come up, but yeah, I.
So, and then after that, eh, the comment is, well, it shouldn't be that bad if you're doing your job.
Mhm.
And so, right now, I think a lot of agents are coming forward and saying, my business is terrible. And I'll be the first one to say that. I
Mhm.
made a major transition this year, and I did not have those operations and those foundations in place.
Mhm.
And so, I was trying to build that for so long, but my year this year is completely different than last, on my numbers and volume. But what leadership is saying is, what are you doing every day? It goes back to that consistency. You should have never stopped doing that, and I
Right.
did stop that last year because my business did build up pretty heavily. And so I was more focused on that versus making the phone calls, sending the handwritten notes, and
So you kind of got in a position where you got busy enough that it was busy enough to take you away from the stuff that was
oh yeah,
putting new people into your circle.
yeah.
Yeah, which we all are guilty of that, right?
So that's the fourth business model, which is going to be leverage,
Right.
which is important as well. And
Hmm.
so, but I wasn't doing the number one thing that a real estate agent should be doing every day, which is prospecting, and that's showing in my numbers today. So, for any sales meeting today, the leadership is getting up there, and they're basically saying, number one, you need to pivot. You need to shift your business if it's gone down. You've either not been consistent with your prospecting and marketing.
Hmm.
You need to pick that up. That needs to be number one, period. But also, to to shift, you've got to start looking at your costs and start cutting costs.
Hmm.
Because for me, if my business is down so greatly this year, well, I'm not going to spend that $70,000-$80,000 in business expenses.
There's no. Yeah, I mean, I think. Yeah, you got to be smart. You're not paying for the billboard, just for an example. You're not paying for a
Right.
billboard when you can make phone calls for free because the
Yeah.
billboard's going to train you.
Yeah.
If the business is not coming in, although you could take the chance with the billboard, but I don't know if billboards really actually bring you,
Yeah.
um, you know, much business. I mean, I guess it helps the attorneys in town that say they, to get you $2 million for your accident,
Yeah.
but
No, it needs to be every day.
yeah,
And so
because it doesn't cost you anything to get on that phone and
correct.
dial.
Or
Yeah.
shoot a text to some of your friends, whoever it may be, and
Hmm.
just say, just keep me in mind. I'd
Hmm.
love to do whatever I can to earn some business from you. Do you know of anyone that's looking to buy or sell? And so that's what leadership is saying today.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know that you guys are suffering, but you need to be doing the very one thing that you should have never stopped doing.
Exactly. I wish more of you guys showed up at the Ricky Caruth event
Yeah,
back in
I saw
October.
that. Yeah.
If I had him on the podcast before that event. If you don't listen to him, but I mean, Better people are like, well, you didn't really teach. He basically said what you just said.
Yeah.
I could summarize the whole thing. Now he gives you some inspirational stories of his success and how he
Yeah.
got to as a solo agent doing 100 deals. I think it was for 2 or 3 years in a row.
Right.
He was at 100 units, or 100 transactions, and because he just loved it. That's
Yeah.
like you and I don't love that thing, but that is part of the deal. Is how are we making our touches, right?
Right.
Are we making so many touches a day? Reaching out, reminding people, hey, I'm in real estate, or hey, I'm in mortgages, right? We're not, but because he consistently did it, and of course, in his case, he loved it, so it really paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's how many conversations are you having in a day about real estate?
Hmm. Yep.
So
Anything else you'd like to add?
I don't think so. What's for lunch?
um, we've been going about an hour and 15 minutes. I really enjoy. I think it was in depth, and I think you really to let everyone know. I think you were very open to your situation, which I think is a situation that a lot of agents who are listening are going to resonate with. And I would suggest everyone. It's actually a good read, or if you want to audible this grit, because you do have to have grit
Yeah.
to be in real estate and to fight through these times that you're talking about. Actually, the one question I had because you mentioned this probably half an hour ago, whatever it was, but it came to my mind because you were talking about, I'd recommend make sure you have your savings, you have your things that you can last because you're just getting started or transitioning. Were you hearing a lot of that from the people in 2008, that you came into Builder World in 12, 13, that we're talking about, hey, yeah, in 2008, 2009, we couldn't give away a home, you know what I'm saying? And that if they didn't have that nest egg piled up, they were burning the money as fast as it was coming in from 2005 and 6, that they probably weren't in the business anymore. But those people who survived through it were kind of feeding you, hey, there's going to be a day when things are down.
Right.
Yeah.
No idea. I couldn't tell you what I was doing in 2008.
Right.
Enjoying life, I'm sure.
Well,
But,
the builder world wasn't just footloose and fancy free as
right.
we have the demand for housing in Northeast Florida now, which COVID put it on steroids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we took it, and the builders are benefited from that. The rates have slowed it down, and hopefully will loosen up and so forth. But there's I imagine during the 8 years there was some times, there were some months where
Mm-hmm.
you're like, is anybody going to come walk in my neighborhood?
Yeah.
So you learn that through time. But I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much.
It was
I
a good
appreciate
story,
it.
and I
Yeah.
think it would definitely resonate with a lot of agents out there.
Okay.
Thank
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank
Good.
you. Oh man.
Did I go deep on you there?
No, I mean it was good. It's it's not hard for me to get vulnerable, and I think a lot of agents just can kind of fake it till you make it. But I am not that person. I'm going to be honest to a fault, and that's the reality of it. Is a lot of people see like, oh, they're driving a shiny car or whatever it may be, and think that that's the world that we just have and live in, and they have no idea how hard it is. And mentally, I think it's definitely been challenging for me, but I would rather tell it for like it is than just kind of be like, get into real estate and you'll be fine.
I resonate with you a lot from the standpoint. I mean, at least for the first 12 years I was in a call center. I worked the first 8.5 years. I was at Quicken Loans.
Yeah.
So I didn't. There was no lead generate. I mean, yeah, did we follow up with people who we talked to if we didn't close them? But really to focus, especially as we went into like 2009 and 10, as rates were dropping. I mean, you didn't really have to do a lot of follow up calls. You were generally closing people. I mean, the ideal situation was in a 30, 40-minute call on a refinance. They're calling in, boom, boom. You're getting their credit all right there. You're closing them and getting a credit card for the appraisal. All there on that in 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And but there was no prospecting per se. It was funny when I went to went from Quicken Loans to Loan Depot, but at that time I was working from home because when I started with Quicken in 05. By 2008, my now wife, she's the one I chased up to Michigan and started working from Quicken, which was a blessing to get in the business. But then she got transferred back to Little Rock. So I'm like, and Quicken was downsizing because the market was so bad in 2007. And I had been promoted to lead a team in June of 07. Well, by December, they're like, hey, we're retracting. We're cutting out the people who aren't producing. We're downsizing the divisions, which were made up of generally half a dozen teams. And they were, we need you to go back into production. I'm like, okay. So I said, well, you sold me from the beginning when I got hired was you can either work remotely, which was still primitive in 2008, or go into management. Well, management's retracting, so I want to work my girlfriend's now. Actually, I think we were engaged at that time. Now, fiance is now down in Little Rock. I'm going there. Like, okay, well, work one more month on the floor, and then, to make sure you can still do it. So it was January of 08. Great month. Packed up that boom. February 1st, I'm headed to Little Rock and worked from home. Well, the problem is it's still working in a call center. You got people who never even written a loan, listening to your calls and all this stuff. And the big thing at that time was, there was Section A of your tax return if you unreimbursed business expenses, right? They don't count that anymore. They don't even pay attention to that. But what it started having to do is these people. I remember this one guy. His wife was an artist, so they were writing off all these expenses. They were writing off all these expenses on their unreimbursed business expenses for her artistry. So he had this income, but then their taxable income were retracted because in this Section A. So I mean, like, oh, you didn't ask them if they had any. Blah, blah, blah. So I started to get burnt out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was and literally, obviously, when you're working 30 feet from your bed, I was like, I get out of this. I was already had a bad attitude, and my numbers started to go down. So I went to Maris. I remember Maris asking, well, how are you going to get business? I go out and talk to real estate agents.
Yeah.
How does everyone else get business? That type of thing. I did well.
Yeah.
But then someone came and told me, say, hey, go over and work at Jet. Well, then I'm at Jet, and because I was so used to dealing with volume, the agents and talking to people on the phone, which a lot of these mortgage people do not, they have no ability to take an app over the phone.
Right.
Now, granted, with technology, it is easier if they do the link and they fill it out themselves. Totally agree. And if people will do that, great. But site agents would call me, and I'd be sitting there hot, and they'd be like, hey, I got so-and-so here. Boom. I don't know if you know the Solaire mother-daughter combination of Dreamfinders.
No.
They're like they're dynamic, but they're closers, man. They close hard.
Oh, yeah.
But there was nothing like, hey Tracy, we got John and Sally here. It's on the timer. Don't worry about it. It's behind the TV. It's behind the TV. They're like, we got John and Sally here. They want to buy a home. Can you get them pre-approved? I'm like, okay. Boom, I'm on with it. Right there on the head. I'm sitting there taking a nap. But the thing that a lot of these loan officers couldn't get, I could take a nap. Obviously, first thing you do is get their credit, right?
Yeah.
The credit's coming up, you're getting their income. Okay, credit's good, income's good. Here's the payment. Does the debt ratio work? Okay, great. Pre-approval's on its way. Go ahead and sign the contract. That's what. And I was on to next. There was literally days where I'd sit at, and especially in 20, I would still go in the office on Saturday. I would volunteer because they only had one person working that all the subdivisions could call into, right?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no problem. I wrote like 10, 12 deals in one Saturday.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and like, but 90% of them were closing. I mean, eventually. I mean, it's not that they weren't dropping out.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting there, and of course, you know what it is. It's like anything. They all come in at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But because I was sitting there going, boom, yeah, hey, that's great. I'll send over the pre-approval a little later. Great, because I'm looking. I could look at the loan. I'd done enough loans at that point, had enough at bats, and I could say that there's not going to be any problems that we know at this point with this problem. They have good credit. Their income is their income. If they say they're not making that much, and we find out that they don't make that much, well, that's their problem, not mine. But based on what you told me, their pre-approval, I'll send it over in a few hours, or whatever. And I took the next call, and I was just going through them and rambling. So I had built up this huge pipeline. Then whatever you do, don't ever do a loan with fiber mortgage. That's all I'm gonna say. All right. That guy came to me because I started the podcast at that time. It was I started the podcast in June of 21 was the first CC Underwood on. CC Underwood was June. Christina, I think, was number 2. And by the next year, I have more social media now than I did then. But this guy saw me and it's like, oh, and he's going online and seeing all my numbers. My numbers were from the builders. I was doing some outside stuff, a handful of stuff, but nothing. I mean, I had 100 loans in my pipeline at Truman. So he offered me this big salary. He was going to pay me big time for the loans that I wrote for myself. I mean, it literally, when I put out the package and mapped it out, it was like a $400,000 or $500,000 package. He wanted me to come over and run it because he wanted to become a lender, and he had all this money for guy's a weasel. It lasted about 6 weeks, but it took me away from. If I was sitting, things would be a lot different if I was still sitting at Dreamfinders right now for me, because I feel, that's why I feel for you. I know that was a mistake I made in my life, but my wife's like, we couldn't have turned it down. I mean, it's like, dude, the guy's making $10,000 a month salary, sign-on bonus, paying me for the leads the loans I was doing in the override from the other loan officers in there, that because I was going to be his sales manager, and he was going to go out and open other offices. He never went out and opened other offices. He just thought my presence was going to have like agents be like calling in and so forth. So so that was my
setbacks that are meant for something greater at some point. I gotta go to a broker's open.
I thought you were asking me what was for lunch. You wanted to go to lunch. I was
No,
asking you where
I
to
do.
lunch.
It's a 12 to 2 broker's open.
Come on over here. Let's get a selfie here in front of my. Good. Excellent.
Perfect.
Thank you, madam.
So much. Now I can untuck my shirt. Listen, it all comes off as soon as I am out of the real estate world.
I'll probably see you tomorrow. I'll probably stop by there.
Okay, you should.
Good.
All right, thank you.
All right, Carrie, you have a good day.
Thanks, you too.